right. Let's get to our global guest then. Herald van der Linde is head of Asia Equity Strategy at HSBC. He's joining us now. Herald, good morning. Great to have you with us here on the program. Thank you very much for your time. Does NVIDIA do any damage beyond one day or what? And what does it mean? Because it's essentially a big driver for global markets, US and the AI theme in specific. Your thoughts?
Oh, that's right. There's questions being posed to the AI rally that we've seen, right? And it's not necessarily just an NVIDIA question. It's more or less, we got $1 trillion in capex in AI around the world. Are we going to make $1 trillion of profits as well? I don't know how you use AI. I use AI in two ways. I have a free app that I use, and at home I pay $30 for a sort of open AI thing that you can use at home to make stuff and actually hardly use it. So they're not really making money out of me. Some of the businesses maybe do that. But so along the way, we know that some of these chip makers, they're doing pretty well. But along the way, somebody's losing money here. And I think this is what causing that cautiousness on AI. We've seen a massive rally. Yeah, we know that there is growth, but how is this going to unfold? Also, competition can come in. And that, of course, takes the fizz out of some of these markets. Taiwan, for example, parts of Korea are pretty exposed to this, part of China actually as well. And I think that's what's unfolding, and it has actually been unfolding for the last 6 weeks or so already in these AI-related stocks.
Herald, hi. Great to have you on the show. So, this morning, there's some caution across the entire Asian region. Most of the markets are in a bit of a profit-taking mode. So there's NVIDIA on one side. We've discussed that. There's obviously the anticipation of this rate cut in September from the US Federal Reserve. And then there's China and the whole slowing piece over here. So when you put all these things together, what's the sense that you get? What lies ahead for risk assets as we get towards the end of the year? Can the equity rally continue? And which equity markets would you expect to continue to outperform?
Yeah, I think, we will get support from the lower interest rates, and that's good. Another thing that helps Asia in particular is that what we see is that China is actually ramping up its exports. It's got a lot of oversupply, and that oversupply is being exported. And that is beneficial if you are a consumer in Asia. You can buy an EV much cheaper now than you could, say, a year ago, because Chinese exports are penetrating your particular markets. And that will take some of the inflation pressures in these places off. And we already know that some of these central banks would really want to cut interest rates. They're waiting for the Fed to do so. So that could mean that we're going to see lower interest rates in Asia over the next 12 months or so. So that I think is a positive already. Also, we've seen the US market rally already quite a lot. We could see a bit of a weaker dollar, maybe not so much, but that sentiment could actually improve sentiment for emerging market assets over the next 12 months. So I'm actually feeling somewhat positive for EM in that regard, and for Asian equities in general in that regard.
All right. Hi, Herald. Good morning and good to see you. When I was looking at your notes with regard to the flows picture, and there has been some outflows from markets like India, Korea, I think a couple of others as well you have mentioned. But if you're bullish on the emerging market basket from here on, what's the toss-up? Where does India play out there? We're the structural story, but Chinese valuations have been attractive, and we've spoken about this, but that market doesn't seem to be getting going. Your view?
No, that's absolutely right. So what you actually see is kind of a funny situation in Asian equities that we don't have too often. So let's take it in a larger picture, right? You have Japan, the yen is strengthening. That's not so good for equities. So people are readjusting positions there. Then we have Taiwan and Korea. There was an AI story, mostly in Taiwan, actually. And that's fizzling out as well, as we just mentioned. So, okay, you don't really want to be there either. China, I'm leaving for the moment until the end. Then we got the ASEAN markets, and things are improving for them, but they're not big enough. So then you got India. But everybody I talk to is saying, okay, India is a great story, but it's just way too expensive for me. And what you now see is foreign investors being crowded out of the Indian stock market because the local demand is so strong. And we see that the foreign investors have gone underweight on India. And that's not because they don't like Indian story. It's just that they feel uncomfortable with the valuations. And therefore, by default, we see that people hold probably bigger positions in China than what at least the conversation that I have with them suggests. They are not so positive on China, but they're almost neutral there as well. And that's, I think, more a reflection of being uncomfortable in some of the other Asian markets. So, yeah, the outlook for EM could be okay, but for Asia, it's actually going to be quite picky. And so it's going to go to idiosyncratic sort of stories in sectors. Where you got Malaysia, for example, the power consumption is really good because data centers are being built there. You got Indonesia, lower interest rates. In China, there's here and there some idiosyncratic stories as well. So that's what's happening. People are trying to dig deeper and shift through the rubble, if you want to put it like that, to find the interesting equity stories around the region.
I mean, as they say, sometimes too much choice is not good, right? The local investors have nothing to know but here in India, and it has worked out great. But that's only in jest, Herald. But take your points, excellent points as always. Thank you very much for joining us, and it's a pleasure having you here on CNBC TV18. So foreign investors still finding India a little punchy and looking at some other sort of markets around as well. So that's essentially Herald and his thoughts there.